All right, all right, all right. So, this video over here is about Chris Williamson talking to Konstantin Kisin. At this moment, Chris Williamson is about to form a question. And as frequently these interviewers do, when they form a question, they actually make a statement alongside that question. Now, in this particular case, Williamson is making a statement about the United States, which I have found to be very, very ill-informed or surprisingly poorly posed. And this is them just shooting the breeze. So they were talking about something before and they're talking about something else now, and he's literally changing subjects. Okay? Now, we're going to play this bit in its entirety, right? And then I'm going to say what I think about it.
What about this sort of culture around productivity? I think that's interesting that if you look at America, great country, I very much like it there, not much heritage, right? Not a massive amount of heritage, which means that you haven't had time to accumulate. First off, class hasn't ossified in quite the same way. Posh is just a word that when I use it, most Americans understand it, but look at me like it's something they haven't heard for a decade or so. Class hasn't sort of stratified out in that same sort of way. But importantly, if you're wealthy, at most, you're only like 5 generations away from the person that made it. So yeah, like maybe you were privileged, but you were probably still working on the business at that time, whatever.
Whatever indeed. Williamson, America is a classless, as you intended as a Brit, place. There is no middle class, there is no upper class, there is no lower class. America is now desperately attempting to become European and therefore have these fundamentally antithetical concepts to its existence. But America has effectively infinite upward mobility, which can come from literally anywhere. So you can be a son of a bricklayer and become a multimillionaire. You can be a migrant from a completely different place and become a millionaire. You can be a basketball player and become a millionaire. You can work as a comedian and become a millionaire. Because the only thing that determines your value is your capability of generating profit for yourself. Now, profit is the measurement of how much other people find you valuable. It's essentially a system of thanks. Okay? So, you can't argue that class hasn't ossified. It could never ossify. It will now. It will now. Baltimore, New York, Chicago. These are going to become the lower class. At the moment, it's referred to as the black community. Right? And then other places that are a bit more zhuzhy, right? New York, San Francisco, etc. But even that's not working because you got Skid Row in San Francisco. But then again, this is kind of the case everywhere. I'm assuming somewhere like London. I don't know London very well, but I'm assuming London is going to have its own sort of dark alleys. Meaning, the only way in which you have noblemen in an environment, in a philosophical environment, is if there is a governmental machinery that supports them. Lobbying. I suppose lobbying is pretty much it. Like the capability of a certain people to have more political influence. I think Tate speaks about this, that this is his only raison d'etre at the moment. He is desperately attempting to chase influence over political figures. That's his new goal. That's his current goal, or whatever. May have changed. I don't recall when I heard him say this, right? And that is because America is currently transforming, this is my opinion, of course, into a socialist country where classes do exist, where some people have more influence than others, where people who are wealthy have an easier time of becoming wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, which is kind of always the case, uncontrollably, and they convert their infinite wealth, or reasonably high wealth, into influence, into influence is the word, really. So you can think of somebody like Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates could be stupid rich and just, I don't know, buy 27 Porsches and enjoy them all. One per day. I don't know. He could do that, but he doesn't do that. He instead wants to effect change. And he's capable of wriggling himself into positions of power which shouldn't exist. And what you speak of is you are using your British understanding of the world, which is ugly, to evaluate the United States and their history. I know what you're saying when you say that America has no heritage, even though that's silly. It's got its own heritage. It doesn't have the millennia of heritage that we have, which, by the way, I'm sure a lot of people find very offensive, considering all of the Indios that were there before. They had loads of heritage, chucking spears for 3 millennia, right? However long. So setting that aside, they do have a heritage. Like every one of their cities is totally made out of squares. It's hilarious. It's purely efficient. There are no curves anywhere because they don't need them, right? Our transportation in Europe has developed over millennia. So it was first designed for walking, then it was designed for horses, or it was expanded to horses. Now we need to fit cars in them, and it's really, really complicated. You go anywhere in Italy, Portugal, Spain, France, Britain to some extent, but less so, I think, based on my memory anyway, right? And you'll find these tiny little alleys and everything. This is a non-concept in the US. The US was built from the ground up to be as efficient and as expansion ready as possible, right? And it's very square-based. It's really, really dull. I hate driving in North America. Canada is essentially the same. Why am I going down these rabbit holes? I don't know. But the point is, there is heritage. It's right there. And one of their heritage parts is the absence of class, which is why it's so difficult to observe and so difficult for you, young fellow, to probably my age actually, to relate to or to grasp. Because if you mention the word posh, it doesn't mean anything to them. To Americans, it's perfectly fine to be filthy rich and totally vulgar. It's not a problem. Right? The word class is complex, by the way, because it means two things simultaneously. One is a judgment of the quality of one's behavior in the eyes of the surrounding people. So comporting oneself with class means comporting oneself in a way that is appropriate. The British are very competent from this perspective, right? They are very polite, right? Americans are nowhere near that. It's entirely common for you to go and ask for somebody for directions in North America, and they'll just turn around and go, huh? It's just spectacularly rude, right? That's why you British say, beg your pardon, or something like that, or pardon, right? Which is very different. That shows class. Americans are classless from that perspective. I'll grant you that. That's why it's completely common for them to put a supercharger the size of a small cow on top of their bonnet, which they refer to as hood. And it's entirely normal for them to design a hood that's about 12 feet longer than what it needs to be. It's just they, but it's them. We like them as they are. You said yourself that you like them. That's class, right? Now, what you refer to as class is this word that essentially implicitly acknowledges and kind of creates out of thin air the idea that individuals are different. Some are royals, some are this, some are that, and the ones you like is upper class, middle class, and working class. What a genius descriptor. Because you probably would be either middle class or by now even upper class. I mean, you have the influence of you have a very, very large audience, right? So you're quite powerful. So you're probably upper class. But you work all the time. That's why you're quite powerful. So all of these are misnomers. 100% of these concepts are designed specifically for people to embrace them, whether they are for or against them, so that these are the only terms they can use to communicate with one another. It is a very, very subtle and very sneaky technique, and it works fantastically well. I'll give you an example. Nowadays, everybody talks in political terms about the left and the right. Now, as a European, well, you are English, so you know full well that you have the Tories, the Tories are on the right, Tories, Labour, right? And then you have the Lib Dems somewhere. But you actually have more parties. You have more micro parties and microcosms. If you then go further south, say you go to France or Spain or Italy or Portugal, you have loads of parties, much more fragmented. Right? I'm assuming the Teutonic countries are like that as well. I'm not sure. Right? But whereas in the United States, you have the Democrats and the Republicans. In Canada, you've got the there's the NDP, which is a one left. Then you've got the Liberals. I need to put air quotes and everything because all of these words are false. Which are the left, the Trudinas, and then you've got the Conservatives, etc. But everybody's now utilizing the terminology left and right on a global scale. I find that fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Like, arguing that Trump is on the right is nonsense. And arguing that, too many Europeans arguing that Biden and Harris are on the left would be also nonsense. Because it is. But when you start using these terms just to group people, you actually create these categories. You create the categories by utilizing and popularizing by extension the term. So in your case, class. And only the Brits use that term. No, not true, actually. It's used in Europe as well. But the Brits like it a lot, right? And with the particular triple layer, working class, middle class, upper class. And the usual argument is that the middle class is disappearing, right? Let me translate what that actually means to you from an American lens, okay? Poor people are now not capable of climbing out of their poverty level so that they become more well off and more capable of pursuing a lifelong pattern or path of success. They are incapable of rising up. They can't use the quality of upward mobility. That's what's happening. Right? The people, however, who are very well off for whatever reason, okay, are capable of not only retaining that, but multiplying it several-fold, and they're starting to control things. Okay? Notice how everything I've said matches exactly the concept of class that you would be using, but it is unrestrained from those categories. Because those categories don't exist. You've invented them. So you can't use that terminology and that logic to describe the United States. The United States have posh clothing, even though it looks spectacularly vulgar to you and me. But they don't have the concept of class. There is no such thing as working class. When Bezos started working on Amazon with that concept of essentially preserving and selling books online on a website, he was about as low as working class / middle-ish class as you may imagine, working like an absolute lunatic to get that done. And then it improves. And you're right in saying many of the people who are highly wealthy, who would be now considered upper class, right, don't really go back to a noble heritage. There is no heritage. I mean, I'm sure that all of these people will then, I'm sure the 11 children I think that Musk has unless he loses everything soon enough, which he should. But setting that aside, let's pretend he doesn't. I'm sure that they are going to start from a position of substantial advantage, right? Because of what their father has done. Grand. But it doesn't guarantee that they're going to end in a high position. Certainly not as high as their dad. The probability of that is almost nothing. Bronny James, LeBron James. Same thing. Because it doesn't work. This entire system doesn't work. America is individualistic. It depends on the success of the individual. Bronny James is a great example. His dad can have motivated him, helped him, inspired him, given him money to go after the best possible training, got him a spot in the Lakers, etc. He is still a bit rubbish, certainly compared to his dad. C'est la vie, bro. That's how it works. Right? So you can't say that because LeBron James is in the upper echelons of basketball, all of his lineage remains there. That's not how it works. And it's, by the way, it's not how it works in Britain also. Setting aside the royal family and probably your shadow government, right? But even the government, I mean, I remember Nick Clegg friggin' 15 years ago was like, that these people will not go away. They are a special class, but a class, for example, that you're not supposed to notice. Dude, I'm rambling. This is going long, but whatever. You're not supposed to notice that there is a political class. Every now and then some people mention it. For example, Ann Coulter talks about the technocrats, or she talks about the plutocrats, for instance. Right? So she creates categories to refer to them. But in your culture, you're not supposed to notice that there is a political class and that they're always there and they will not leave. It's absolutely incredible. And yet, it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother anybody. It should. But you all are going to be talking, no, there's a working class. This isn't a thing. There is no working class. The reason why your working class remains working class and doesn't turn into middle class is because it's constantly and eternally, profoundly robbed by its own government through taxation. Because if people were able to actually save some money, they would be able to climb up. That's what we all used to do. That's what I used to do when I was young. And it was unnecessary to be as effective at working as you are, Chris. You are way more successful than I will ever be. Well done you. That's great. I mean, I've got 5 children. You probably have 0, so I win. But setting that aside, you can easily enter the upper class because you earn so much. I'm assuming, of course, I don't know. You earn so much that the taxes kind of don't affect you. And plus you evade 3/4 of them. Because it makes loads of sense for you to invest the money to evade them. Well done. Congratulations. I approve of that, just so we're clear. But normal people, okay, struggle like mad nowadays. You can't buy anything. You can't afford it. You can't afford anything. So everybody borrows everywhere. Then they end up having an infinite slew of debt, right? Because they are not going to say no to what they want to have, even though they can't afford what they want to have, as an example, right? But buying a house is now almost impossible. All sorts of things. Obviously not impossible to you because you've earned enough and now you're quote unquote upper class. But you understand these categories shifts constantly, right? What is poor, what is not poor, it always moves. And the only people that have the correct answer are indeed the Americans, or at least the Americans of old, who said there is no class. It's never existed. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I do not care. I essentially don't care about any of your characteristics. Okay? What matters to me is, are you effective at what you purport to do? At what you're telling me you can do for me? If you're effective, brilliant. I'll keep giving you money. I'll keep giving you money. Right? That's why on YouTube you see all of these insane channels, like there's this guy that only details cars, that this guy that races in rallies, there's this guy who tells you how to invest, etc. Presumably either they're very effective communicators or, well, heck, yourself, very effective communicators or effective listeners in your case, right? You know, and the market, the people reward you. And so you climb out of your poverty. That's it. That's how it works. There is no class. So, to conclude, A, America has heritage. It's very obvious. And the fact that you can't see it says more about you than it does about it. Your meter of measurement of what is heritage is incorrect. B, class doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in America and it doesn't exist in England. You're all pretending that it does, therefore you conjure it. C, the class that does exist and does exist in Europe is the capability of being elegant. The English are not particularly good at it. The Italians, certainly dramatically better. As an example. And D, this was all very en passant. You just said it and you were going to move on. But I'm not happy with this. You can't get away with expressing judgment about something that you fundamentally don't understand. At least in my opinion. So I noticed it and I reacted to it. And that is all. And goodbye.